LSU's Will Campbell had a highly decorated career in college, but we have to ask ourselves, is he going to be as good in the NFL? There's some physical limitations that we need to address here, Ryan. And I think the starting point of this conversation, is he a guard or is he a tackle?
There's going to be some teams that are going to overlook the arm length, which obviously is less than 33 inches, which for people that don't follow scouting too intently, like 33 has kind of become the new threshold. 33 plus is what you typically want for an offensive tackle. 34 is what you actually would prefer, but like 33 plus you can get past, right? Like guys like Penei Sewell are a hair over 33. So 33 has kind of become the new benchmark. There is very few guys, Joe, that are less than 33 inches that are successful offensive tackles in the NFL level. It's like Bernard Raymond, it's like Braden Smith, and then I think Luke Gadecki has sub 33 inch arms. So like it's a very, very short list. I think when you combine the fact that you have sub 33 inch arms with Will Campbell, and I don't think you have great bend, I prefer him inside at guard because I think that the power profile, the physicality, I think that's where it's best unlocked. I do have some reservations and some concerns of when this guy is pressed to playing the more athletic edge rushers in the NFL, the guys like Myles Garrett, TJ Watt, like those types of aliens, I do struggle to think that he can consistently last on an island. So I think he's a guard, but that being said, I think he's a dang good one potentially on the NFL level.
Right. There's a lot of reasons to believe that Will Campbell goes on to be an amazing guard in the NFL. We're going to get to those in a second, but just to round out some of the concerns and weaknesses here for him as a prospect, that lack of length does show up on film. There are times, and especially the Texas A&M game, where he was facing multiple guys, Shamar Stewart and Nick Scourton, that were just height, weight, speed freaks that have way more length than him and way more explosiveness and flexibility, that he showed some signs of struggling. Why put him in that situation for him to have a rough start to his career? Because he's really not built to play out there when he could really be a special individual if he was bumped inside. The other part about it, and you mentioned this, I don't love the flexibility. I think that he shows a lot of issues with recovering on secondary moves, and it all starts with one of the most divisive talking points during the preseason was, is his stance too high? And I think that there's a reason why his stance is too high. And the reason why his stance is too high is because he's not flexible enough. He doesn't get low enough, and it hurts him in the run game. He's not somebody who gets underneath somebody's pads. And it also doesn't help from where his starting point is at tackle. He's not displacing anybody. But I think if you move him to guard, there's a little bit more of a possible improved impact as a run blocker that doesn't show up when he's playing tackle.
I think when you lack length, you need overcompensating traits and the ability to redirect the reactionary quickness. And I don't know if he necessarily has that, right? Like I think he has good reactionary quickness, but I don't think it's to the level that I say, because here's the problem with the short arm conversation, right? When you are blocking a defensive end or whatever defender in space, you need to be comfortable playing outside of your frame, right? Because you're in increased space. If you cannot now have the redirectional quickness to make up for that lack of length, that's how guys slip off your block. That's how you lose the outside shoulder. And from a traditional pass set perspective, you need overcompensating traits. I just don't think that his recovery quickness, his foot quickness is to the level that it can make up for that lack of length overall. So I do think he's a guard. Could there be a certain system that he could less a tackle? It's possible, but I think that we're potentially talking about a plus starter on the interior, maybe a Pro Bowler, potentially a guard. I do think he has that type of upside to him.
Becoming a Pro Bowler as a guard is 1,000% on his radar because we're talking about an individual that's very savvy, that's very smart, he's very technically refined. Those are the benefits that you get from a prospect who started as a true freshman, started really early on in his career. I also got to say, there are clips that were out there on Twitter of him talking about his process and playing offensive line. The dude sounds like he's been coaching O-line for 20 years. And I wouldn't be shocked
even though he's only like 20 years old right now or something, right?
I know. That's what's so funny about it. And I wouldn't be shocked if like in 20 years from now, we're talking about like, oh, this guy's the best offensive line coach in college football or the best offensive line coach in the NFL, because he just has that mentality and he just gives off that energy. But the technique, the ability for him to understand body placement and angles and his hand placement and pass protection, that's where he's able to win. Putting him in a tighter setting in a phone booth is going to take what was a really quality and consistent career to turning him into a possible lockdown player on the inside?
Joe, I just think there's like a stigma around NFL draft prospects at times of moving inside a guard. I mean, we once moved Zach Martin inside the guard, right, when he was coming out of Notre Dame. There's no fault in it. Brandon Scherf, another guy. Sometimes a player is better suited to play one specific spot to the other. Could Zach Martin have been a solid tackle in the NFL? I'm sure. Could Brandon Scherf, coming out of Iowa, have been a solid tackle in the NFL? Possible. But they became great guards, right? They became guys that are difference makers on the interior. And I think that is ultimately what Will Campbell is going to be on the next level. You're going to plug him in a guard. You're going to forget about him for 8+ years because he's just that good as an interior offensive lineman.
Folks, let us know in the comments, what team do you want to see draft Will Campbell and how good do you think he'll be in the NFL? Also, let us know, do you think he's a guard or he's a tackle? All that in the comments below. Subscribe, hit that like button. We'll talk to you later.